Hello and welcome to another video here on Powerdojo. Today we're going to have a look at the button control within Microsoft Power Apps. We are going to move to the demo right away. In order to insert a button, you need to click on the insert option at the top left over here and you have to select button. So among the properties of the button component, the two most important properties of button are text and ONSELECT. So we're going to have a look at both of them today. So this is our button component which has appeared as soon as we inserted it in our fresh project, and screen 1 on the right side you'll see the properties pane where you can change the text for the button. Let's write something like hello there. Now we have filled in the text value for the button. Now let's have a look at the on select feature of our button. In order to choose that, you need to either click on the button itself. In this drop down menu, you will observe that the on select property has been selected by default. If that is not the case, you can just select on select among the options. Now what does on select lets you do? On selecting button that we have created with the text hello there, it lets you put a formula or a function which will be executed on selecting this button, hence the name on select. So we're going to fill in a function over here for on select. We're going to use a function called notify. So we'll just type in notify over here, so which will notify the user on selecting that particular button. So what is the response to hello there? If you are a Star Wars fan, you will know the response to hello there is General Kenobi. We'll close this parenthesis and we'll preview this app by selecting the either this button, the play button at the top right over here, or pressing F5. So let's see what happens once I click on this button. You'll see our apps has prompted us with this message saying General Kenobi. In order to close this preview, we just need to click on the X over here to get out of preview mode. So back in the design mode, we'll just click on a button component again and let's focus on this properties panel over here. Now we had a look at the text field in which we entered hello there. Now we're going to have a look at the display mode, which is right below text. Let's see what the options are. So we have three options: disabled, edit. So let's see what happens when I click on disabled. So when I click on disabled, so Power App disables the button component. Now let's see what happens if we were to preview the app again. Nothing happens. We can't click on the button. So this is what you can do once we disable in display mode. Let's click on edit again. Now right below the display mode, we have another option called visible. So right now, as you can see, it is on. If we were to turn it to off, the button becomes invisible. We'll preview this again in the app. So the button has disappeared. It is not visible to the user anymore, although it is still there. So let's turn this back to on. Now we are back in the design mode. Just in case if you don't see the button properties over here, make sure that you have clicked on the button component in the tree view on the left side. So you'll see the properties that belong to the button component. Now we're going to have a look at the position feature of our button. So right now we can see it has 44 for the X value, whereas the Y value is 44. So what does that signify? So if you have a look at our button, we have these 6 dots around it. So the coordinate x44 and y44 belongs to the top left point of this box of our button. So if I have to change it, let's say to over here right at the top corner, you'll see the coordinates now have been modified to 0 0. Now either you can just take your button wherever you want, or you can put in a fixed value of, let's say, 50 for X and 50 for Y. Not only over here, you can do the same thing by using drop down feature list. You can see we have X and Y over here, where you can just change the values by selecting, let's say, X 50 and Y 50. Now we'll click on our button component back again. We'll have a look at the size. So as we saw, something similar to position, for size, either we can type in the size that we want for a button or just drag like this. So you can see the width and height over here is changing as how we drag and position our button. You can either do this using the properties pane or using the drop down menu. Over here you can see we have height over here. Let's put in 50. and for width, let's put in 250. So there you go. We also have a feature below size which is called padding. So what does padding do? It ensures that we have enough space around our text. So right now you can see all the values are 5 at the moment. So if I want, I can change it to, let's say, 25. Let's see what happens. You'll see the text has moved a bit below than where it was before. So the value of the padding at the top is 25. I'll move this back to 5. Now I'll move to the feature which is right below, which is color. So we have two options over here. The first one that you see is the font color. So if I have to click on this, it will give me options. So if I have to, let's say, click on red one, so you'll see the text has changes color, but we want something bright. So let's see, we'll choose, let's say, green. All right, so it has changed the font or text color over here. We can also change the fill option, so it will change the color of the button, which is the background color of the button. So if I have to click on this, I can, let's say, switch it to purple over here. Either you can change the color by clicking on these options, or again you can select, for instance, in this drop down menu, color, and as you can see over here in the function, it has the RGB value, which is the red, green and blue combination that will give you this particular of green. And the fourth value is of transparency. So if I have to, let's say, change it to 2.5, so it has 50% of transparency. If I had to change it to 0, it's gone. But if I had to change it to 1, it's back to 100% of transparency. I can also write 100% like this, or even keep it back to 1. So this is how you can play with the transparency. So this was the font color. You can do something similar for the fill as well. Now let's preview the app. Let's see what is an interesting thing happening. Now if I bring my mouse or hover my mouse on the button, you see the original properties, the default properties have come back. Remember, our text was white and the button was blue, but when I'm not on the button, when I'm not hovering anymore on the button, it changes to the new settings that we set. So why is that happening? We'll have a look at it in some time. Now moving on to the next feature, it's border. So as it is evident, so what does border lets you do is you can change, let's say, the border thickness to 8 pixels. All right, so if I were to preview the app, so you'll see there is a border, and not only that, you can change it to either solid, dashed or dotted. So let's say what happens when I keep it dashed. So over here you can see it is dashed now, none. So you also have a none option. So if I have to click over here, you'll see the border is completely gone. We'll keep it back to solid and the default value of 2 to come back to our original configuration. The next feature is border radius. So as you can see right now, the button is a bit of a rectangle. So if I had to change it to, let's say, 25 pixels, so you see we have rounded off the corners using that property of border radius. I'll keep it at 0, which was the previous value. Moving on to the next property, we have the font. So you can choose the font that you want to use for the text in your button. So let's choose Arial. You can also change the font size, which is 15 right now. So let's say we double it to 30 like this. The next property we have is font weight. So over here we have several options such as bold, semi-bold, normal and lighter. So let's say if we were to switch to lighter, you see the font weight has changed. You also have different font styles available such as italic, underlined or crossed out. You can either choose one of them or several at a time. You also have text alignment, align your text left, center or the right. You also have vertical alignment in which you can align vertically your text the top or bottom. So moving on to the next set of features, we have something called auto disable on select. So we right now it's on, you can turn it off if needed. So what does this auto disable on select lets you do? For instance, if let's say we are executing an operation by clicking this button, we are sending an API request to recover some data. After clicking this button, while that operation is getting executed in the background, this button will be disabled. So you cannot select this button while that background operation is taking place. So you have an option to either turn it off or on. So this is a nice little feature that you can use in your apps. So we have these three properties of colors, which you can see over here. So this is like the state of the button. So for instance, if you remember, we had an option over here called display mode in which you can select disabled. So it will let you set the color of the button while it is in that disabled mode. So we also have this pressed color. So what does press color lets you do is, for instance, when we are in the app, so you can see right now I'm clicking on the button. So you see the press color is green. So this is what we mean by press color. Going back to our design screen, so let me explain to you what these three set of values mean. So the first set over here, the first column of all these colors is the font, the color of the text that will be during those states: disable state, press state, and when your mouse is on hovering on the button. The second column is the fill color. So this will be the color of the button, the background color, which will be during those different states. And the last column over here is the border color during those states in which the button finds itself. So another interesting thing I want to show you is that if I were to click on, let's say, press color and the border, all right? So as soon as you select an option over here, you will see in our drop down menu, it has by default selected the press border color and the function. So self, it means it's referencing to itself, the button, and the fill option. So this is an interesting aspect of Power Apps that you should know about while designing your components such as the button. The next property we have is the tooltip. So it will so whatever value we've set in over here will be shown when we have our cursor or mouse on the button. So let's type in something like Star Wars Coat. We'll preview this app. Now if I had to hover over the tooltip is giving us a value called Star Wars Coat. The last property over here is tab index. So right now we only have one button, but imagine we have 4 to 5 buttons. What tab index lets you do is when you'll be using the app with using the tab option, you can move from one control to another and in the order that you require. So this is an interesting feature that you can use for our button component in Power Apps. So that's it for this video. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about this video on Power Apps buttons, especially the on select option that we saw earlier. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I will see you in the next video.